Hello, and welcome to Connecting You to You Radio, where we tune in to receive the messages of health and well being that are being broadcast from the soul. I'm your host, Lisa Warner, author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing. I show you how to heal your body naturally by combining your body's innate intelligence with the wisdom of your own soul, so that you can break through the mental programming of limiting beliefs that cause disease and make healing your body and changing your life simple. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Soul Stories, because every soul has a story. And the more we share our stories, the more we realize that we are far more similar than we are different. And today, I am so excited to introduce to you my friend, Jenn Drakes. Jenn is a brilliant, beautiful, multi-talented, multi-dimensional woman who is she's a master coach, she's an author, she's a speaker, she's a podcast host, and so much more. And Jenn's mission is to improve how people feel about themselves, influence them to have a healthy sense of their worth, and use the energy for purpose-driven actions that positively contribute to themselves and their communities. She advocates for everyone becoming the artisan of their lives, what she calls divintastical, easy for me to say, divintastical
Divine-tastic.
living. I can't wait to hear more about it.
Divine-tastical
Jenn,
living.
welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's divine-tastical living, just so you
There we go.
but no, but thank you for that wonderful introduction. I just sit here humble. That's it. Because you just do, right? One of the things I push for with my clients and everybody, especially with the young adults and the youth, is just keep doing. Do it as young as you possibly can to take advantage of your age, but just keep doing. And I think when you get into that mode where you are head bent doing, you don't always stop to realize what you've achieved. So your introduction helped me to kind of, oh yeah, I did that. Okay, I did that. Because it's not on the forefront of my mind every day, of course.
Right? It's amazing. You and I met, I don't know, what we met about a year ago.
Yes,
And
almost a year, yeah.
yeah, and the more time we spend together, the more the more you share your wisdom, the more that all comes out, and it's just like, wow, you have so much inside. I just absolutely love everything that you share. So I'm so excited for you to be able to share your soul story today. So today is all about you. So how did you get to become who you are today?
Well, I now know it as fortunate. I wouldn't have told you that years back. But at this stage of my life, I now realize I was truly blessed. Because my all my pain, my struggles with life, my thoughts of life started very, very young.
Mm.
My earliest memory is 5 years old. So born in the island of Barbados, uh, my mom immigrated to Canada. And I've now come to realize that was a very traumatic time for me.
I bet.
It was to the point had no memory of her. Like it was very traumatic. And she left in the typical immigration of the islands. The adults would leave, and then they would stay with family, the children, and the children would then be dependent for the parents to bring them up. And I have stories of where the parents never brought them up with them,
Oh,
um, because they're going to get settled and everything. But as life takes over, they never, not all of them came back for the kids. I'm grateful to say my mother did. But in the 2 years I was with my grandmother, she instilled some pretty daunting thoughts. um, and patterns on me of survival to the point where she didn't like she's very light skinned. We have Caucasian mixed in with us through, I guess, through the whole journey of slavery and all of that. So she is that light skin, soft hair um, lady. And she didn't have a good view of darker skin
Wow.
people. So she put that on me as an absolute negative. And I think it was such a stark reality from how my mother nurtured me that my whole soul pushed against it. So I was an angry 6-year old, angry
Mm,
7-year old.
sure.
And I didn't understand. And then we would go to church because with my grandmother, we went to church twice on Sunday, in the morning and in the evening. And I had a problem with this whole concept of God and, oh, he loves you and all this sort of stuff. And I remember in church, I would be sitting in the pews going, what kind of crazy God has to be a man, it can't be a woman, because I can't see women doing this to themselves. And I really questioned that whole concept. What is that? How could this loving God put you in this situation? And then I had my sister, because it was me and my sister. My sister is like my grand, light skin. So she was the pedestal to the point she couldn't play with us necessarily. She was not allowed to play with us. And I'll tell you a story. We laugh about it in the family, but it was we really did do it. So us and my cousins and all that would come over. We were pushing. We put up this swing, and we're out there going and thinging the swing. And my sister doesn't join us right away because, of course, she's not supposed to play with us, right? These denigrates out there don't play. So she's watching us having this beautiful time. And finally, she comes and she says, I want to play. So we put her on the swing. We start swinging her. What do you think happens? The swing breaks. She lands on the ground. We thought she's dead. We thought she was dead. And my grandmother was coming home. So we were all thinking, oh, okay, we'll push her under the cellar. She wouldn't know. We'll push her. Of course, she wasn't dead. She was just passed. But that's how fearful and how crazy the thinking and putting it on young kids
Right.
creates a whole different person.
Oh,
And so one of the great things, there were beautiful things about my grandmother, but this is just one of these things that had her thinking. So she would beat us, she wouldn't beat my sister, it was just really a thing. But she would always put us around this living room table. And because my mother would write us letters, and then she would give us the letters, we get to read them, and then she would put us around the table to write back. And we would sit and write. And at 15 years old, my mother showed me that the reason she bought us up as quickly as she did, because we were 2 years with my grandmother. The reason she brought us up was a letter I wrote to her at 6 years old. And she pulled out this, yellowed paper, and she showed me in my handwriting, a child's handwriting, you need to bring us with you. This is not a good situation. And it wasn't in those exact words, but it was relayed to her because she grew up with her mother. So she knows her mother.
yeah.
And they didn't necessarily have a great relationship because my mother was raised by her grandmother, who then had a stroke um, and died. And then she went to her aunt, her mother's sister, because again, her relationship with her mother was always Talmanus.
Ooh.
It wasn't a great relationship. So that letter is what triggered my mom. She went and she got her own apartment because she was roommating. She went through all the immigration. And at 7 years old, August, and if memory serves me right, it was August 7th, 1972, that my mother bought us up with her. Now, here is the other dramatic part. I thought when we were leaving, we'd be leaving my grandmother behind. And who comes on the plane with us?
Oh, whoops.
And it was the first, it was the first memory I have of hatred. And I'm being completely honest. That whole flight, I remember sitting, got the window seat, and I remember sitting by the window seat and looking out on the island as the plane lifted. And I looked up at the sky and I said, "You've got one heck of a sense of humor." That's what that was the relationship I was having with her. I looked up and I thought, "You have one heck of a sense of humor." Because I didn't find it funny. And I thought it was, oh my God, we're supposed to be leaving her, not bringing her with us. But my mom is a blessed woman, and she had a lot of insights that over the years I came to really appreciate. She brought my grandmother up to see for herself the treatment. And not only to see it, but to have a hand in correcting it. So she had purpose in it. But the on that day, the most beautiful thing I could see was my mother at the airport waiting for us. And when she started to see the difference, and it's to the point of even packing for us and everything, my mom sent money, all that sort of thing. My sister got all new things, and I got all reused stuff. It was like it was just a stark difference, right? My grandmother worked in a home, a Caucasian home. My sister could go into the property. I waited outside for my mom, for my grandmother. So the way I now put it is it's not what impacted me. I don't think was just the words of my grandmother or her beliefs, because that I could get where she got the beliefs from. You read anything about just the islands, the slavery, anything. You get where she got the thinking. But what reinforced it at that young age for me was the reinforcement of what was going on around me, such as waiting outside the home. I couldn't go in the gates. They reinforced that those beliefs she had and put on me was real. And I now see, like, I see that so clearly now but I couldn't see it as a child. And when she came up, but she did start to show my mom the difference in her behavior to me and my sister and the favoritism. And my mom shut it down. And at that moment, my mom became my savior. And, from that point, I have always been connected. It didn't start out as a loving relationship. It started out a more angry relationship and a questioning relationship. But I've always been connected that there's something better there and there's a reason I'm on here. And why would you put me through this hardship in life when I can look and see other kids that appeared, notice I said appeared, to have this beautiful white picket fence life. And here I was dealing with so much. And I remember times sitting in the open fields among the grass and just pondering about life and about what, things like happiness and all these other constructs were. But today, I see them as blessings because the magnitude of my heart is so big. And the person I am today is because of all those struggles early on. And it really is why I have such a passion for getting to youth and adults. Because if I can reset their perspectives as early as possible, I know I can fundamentally change their lives, their outcomes, and their aspirations. Because I know firsthand what it's like for people who should be role models, literally squashing you to that of an ant, to demoralization. And how do you lift yourself up from that? And that's my beginning. But I can tell you, it's certainly not my end. It's certainly not my end. And to this day, I love my grandmother deeply. I didn't always love her, but I love her deeply because I attribute her and my father as the two pivotal people that have made me the caring individual that I am today.
That's so beautiful. I mean, it's such a testament to the programming that we receive, that we perpetuate all of these false ideas, this whole divide and conquer, and the owner and the slave, and the whole
Oh,
system is set up that way. We look at, the government and the people, it's the same situation, even though we don't call it the same thing. It really is. It's all set up that way to demoralize us and diminish us. And now here we are as the light workers coming in. We see all of it, we live through it, and then we use it to catapult ourselves up, and then to help everybody else say, hey, we don't need to keep doing the same thing. There's
it's
so much more to life.
right, exactly. And here the thing is the tearing down isn't the key thing. This is where I've landed anyway. It's the tearing down isn't the key thing. It's the building up.
Yes.
How you get to, that saying that, when you're at bottom, you can only go up.
Mhm.
So I think the grace and the gratitude is how do you find the strength when you have been ripped at some level of your soul? Where does the strength come from to build back and build you back based on you, not on anybody else, based on you? How do you build you back?
Yeah.
And that's the blessings. When you built yourself back and you've gone through that, that's where the blessings come from. It's not in the tearing down. There, your family's meant to give you lessons. The family you're brought into are meant to give lessons. And if you believe in soul contracts and all these things, and you chose that,
Mhm.
you orchestrated, you picked your family, you picked your human frame, you picked all of it.
Mhm.
And if they're meant to teach you lessons, I would much rather them teach you the hard lessons and really allow you the build back. And if we get caught up in the negativity of our stories, if we get caught up in spinning that story over and over again and never focus on the build back, then we don't get to the grace and the blessings and the and the gratitude, and understand that it was done for a reason. And I don't care how devastating your story is, because there's stories definitely more devastating than mine. So it's not about how devastating the story is what would you build back? Are you willing to trust and build you back based on you, nobody else? At a key point in my life, I believe I was 16, 17, I walked into my grandmother's house. I said, "Good afternoon, Gran." And my gran looked me dead in the eye. She said, "God, you're black and ugly." That's how she greeted me at a fundamental teenage year. How do you build back from that? But I did. And it takes everything. And that's why I say I don't care how devastating it is. It is, do you put your identity in that person's view of you? Or do you define your identity and choose what you will identify with?
Yeah, this is that was, my story. I got caught in the takedown and, by the time I had hit rock bottom, I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm facing cancer and, this, that, and the other thing. And, do I just give up? Or, what do I do? And I knew that if I went the medical route, that I would have just given up because that
Mhm.
to me was just barbaric. And I knew that the answer was inside. I knew that the answer was just like you said, like being able to build myself back up, to be a masterful soul in a body
Ex
and to find me and my strength and to be who I am, not who everybody projected me to be. And that was the defining moment of my life when I said no to everything else. I'm going to find my own answers. And
exactly.
they came. All you have to do is get quiet, ask, and be determined to trust your own inner guidance.
Exactly. And and growing up in the religion in terms of always going to church on Sunday and these sort of things, it becomes a journey because you're the outcast, right? Like when you are questioning what the priest is saying and all of this. I used to get like in the pews and kicks. Because I would lean to my mom and, look up at her, hit her, and look up and go, "Oh, he's talking." I knew, like, I divinely knew when the information coming wasn't appropriate. Let me use that word. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew as a child, and I would look around the church and think, what are they, what in the world are these people thinking? That's he shouldn't say that, or and I just loved it. And one of my pivotal moments in church was finally in meeting a female reverend. And this was a female reverend that was a single mother. She had lived life, and the words coming out of her mouth were very different to what I had grown up with.
Ah.
And I was like, "You go, girl." And I adored her because she had the realities of living and the ups and downs. And she wasn't hiding it. She was very transparent. And when she did her sermons, it truly was about bringing people together and not separating people. And message of healing, and it was very different messaging. And I'm not trying to say, create a men versus female dynamic of thing. It's just it was very rewarding for me based on all the things I had gone through and where I was in my journey. Now, the great thing that I've found with having the hardship so young is I had taught myself how to be introspective.
Mm.
And so I looked at life very differently to I wasn't the typical, I was a very atypical teenager. I was a very atypical student. I was a very because I had to go so deeply in.
Mhm.
And that's my grandmother's side of being in my life. And I came to realize, because my grandmother now she's in September, she'll be 103.
Nice.
And so we have the gift of longevity in our family. And at some point in my life, when I thought our relationship had come a lot closer, something happened. And she showed me she was the same lady from when I was small. She'd just become a little bit more mellow, but her thinking, because she had gone into this, as she aged, she started to think people were taking things from her. And they weren't. She,
Oh,
and she started accusing me and my kids of having taken something. I said, but I wasn't even in the house because she was with my mom at that time. I said, I've only now come into the city and into mom's house. I wasn't there at that time. Did you ask? I made the mistake of going, did you ask my sister? Because she was around the time you're talking about. She looked at me. Your sister would never do that. Oh, so I would. Me and mine would steal, but
uh,
not my sis like, it was that type of thing out of that this, like, maybe 4 years ago or whatever, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you still have that thinking,"
mhm,
and that was a shock for me, but what was beautiful it was an opportunity to get to resolution of my childhood,
mm,
because what she expected me to do was respond like a child. But I responded like an adult that has my own life, knows myself, knows my kids, have raised in the same values, just not in a religious sense, in more the spiritual sense. I raised my kids. So I'm very calm. I said, That's not going to bother me. Just what shocks me is that you're still thinking, and poor you,"
right.
was kind of the way I put it. I said, "You still have that thinking, and poor you, but it doesn't affect me, and it never will." And then it ended. It
Wow.
ended. She never went down that path with me again. And as I said, I could go and visit my grandmother. I could help her in any way. Would not even phase me. I'm totally neutral about that. And so I laugh, and the tears are tears of joy, because to get beyond it, not everybody gets beyond it. And they continue to see themselves through the eyes of other people. My challenge to the audience is, if you haven't done it, when do you see yourself? Because what ends up happening is, when it's through the eyes, so let's say it's through the eyes of my grandmother, when she passes, whose eyes will I now be looking to for my identity? My children? And if they don't have it, who eyes will I be? I'd rather look to me for my identity and not be defined by the eyes of others. And that's the frame in which I go out. And when I'm coaching and helping others to get beyond whatever their shites are, because I call them shites, which stands for things that that you hold on to, that comes from your environment when you were young, from your inner child. And you bring these things with you as an adult, but you never go through your shite bag and go, I'll keep that and I'll dump that. I'll keep that. What my book asks you to do is to do that cleaning. And as you say, stand in your light. So it's very, the whole thing is, what stops us from doing that? What prevents us from standing in our light? And more importantly, how do you know you are? And because my struggle started from young, I've had years to work on this. I think it's more difficult when you've had this supposed perfect life, and then your struggles start later in life, and getting the strength and the realization to now overcome what has, shaken up your perfect life, and start to recognize, yeah, life is never meant to just, if there's somebody that's had a perfect life from year one to year whatever, please let me know, but I don't know of any.
Right.
I know it comes at some point. I just don't know. Mine started at 5, and um So I look to others to for them to do their own inventory and figure themselves out, because the one thing I do know absolutely and I believe so strongly is when we were that babe in arms, we were perfect, we were magnificent, and we knew so much more than people gave us credit for knowing.
Uh,
That I know undoubtedly.
100%.
And when you start to interact with this thing we call society and work, and whether it starts at school and whether or at home, it doesn't matter. When you start those interactions is when they start shutting and feeding in things that don't always serve you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so devastating to a being to be looked at as having no intelligence, and babies are looked at as completely vapid, just empty vessels that
Yeah.
have no intelligence, and we have to teach them every single thing because they don't know anything. Not true at
It's absolutely not true. I've learned so much from my kids, and one of the things in my own rearing, in terms of going through my shite bag and say, I'm going to keep this and I'm going to discard this. One of the things I definitely discarded with my kids is about children being seen and not heard. I dumped that so hard.
awesome.
Because I had
Congratulations.
my own thoughts and I was advising adults about their relationships and all that at 8 and 9 years old. And I remember sitting and going, why are they talking to me and asking me about something that's so obvious? That was, but so I looked to that and I dumped that for my kids and I gave them their voice. And it wasn't easy. It's not the easiest way to raise a child, that's for sure, because they will give you their voice.
Right?
And sometimes you gotta reel them in because sometimes that voice can be rude for others or, too blunt or whatever. So sometimes you gotta reel them in and give them say, "Oh, you're not there to hurt people's feelings. You're not there to put people down. That I won't tolerate. You're not there to be rude and stuff. You can share your thoughts, but there's a way to do it." And teach them that. So it's not always the easiest way to raise, but man, is it the right way? Because when I see them now as adults, and they're able to look at situations, especially world situations, and be able to deem this is not kosher or where did they get this ridiculous thoughts? Or sometimes we're watching movies that show the thinking of the past and they're like, what? They don't get it. And they're trying to put, you know, to rationalize it and they can't. And when they make choices in friends and people and the acceptance that I see of all, uh, I'm proud of that decision. And I think the world could learn a lot from a lot of young people, and certainly from children. They could learn a whole lot if they are willing to listen and parse out in from a child's words what they're telling you. Because my children have certainly grown me in my viewpoint of some things and expanded my view and educated me and because of that it becomes a really beautiful relationship as they grow into adults and become adults. Creates less of a transition from parenting to adult relationship. The relationship just flows. It isn't that stark transition. uh so yeah.
That's so beautiful. I've always had the realization that, and for me, I was connected to source at a very young age. My earliest memories are, just being months old, but the most profound memory was when I was 2, and I was just connected to love and light, and I knew that that was God. Like, this is what it is, and this is eternity, and this is always here, and this love is unconditional, and it's where we come from, and it's what we're made of. And then I I looked at this world and I'm like, wow, something is terribly wrong here. Like they're not doing this. Here we are fighting, and it was very clear that this was like a soul prison. It was like I didn't know why I had been sent to prison. I didn't understand that, well, hey, we're the ones that are coming here to set everything free, to
Right.
change the game. But it was really clear that, the
And I
dots
think
are
that
are
there's
connected.
like that's such a beautiful thing the way you describe it. And every time you do, I think I was connected, but I was angry. And because of the whole religious piece being put on Sunday school, church, the way they sh- interpret, how should I say, the way they interpret the words. Um, I think the anger grew because they were saying things that didn't correlate
Exactly.
to my experience.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of anger. But what was interesting, and why I say I believe I was connected very early and I pushed it aside. But at 9 years old, I remember walking in a park and making a commitment to my divine that I would no longer swear, I would no longer steal, I will no longer fight others. And I made those commitments at 9 years old. And I've never broken two of them, but one that I broke was at in my 20s because I worked in a company with a lot of factory. They made all sorts of construction things, windows, all that, and getting thing. They swore and they challenged me because they couldn't understand how are you in your 20s and you don't swear, like what the heck. So they would challenge me and then I would say swear. And I remember when it first came out my mouth, it was so foreign that it was hard to believe I used to swear like a pirate when I was a kid. But at 9 years old, I knew not to make those commitments and that I was better than the person that I was showing myself to be.
Mm.
And so I corrected all those things.
Wow.
So I had to have been connected to get that guidance and absorb it and move from there forward with my life because I definitely wanted something different. And never wanted to ever give my grandmother the satisfaction that her assessment of me was correct. Uh, so a lot of things changed that from 9 years old in terms of my behavior, my decorum, um, the way I started to look at the world. And I think I was the first time I started to really come into my own, even in that dependent state of the environment. And the other pivotal part of that too was then coming together with my father with such hopes that things in life would be better with him in our lives, only to find out that he was promiscuous, he was an abuser, he had pedophilic tendencies, and to know that I came from that core um, became another point of devastation for me.
Oh, sure.
Um, and the day that he finally, because me and my sister and I talked to my mom and go, because she was thinking she was making the right family by bringing him in because we asked for that.
Mm.
Because all around us, as I said, was the perception of this white picket fence families all around. And ours was completely, I didn't know the word at that time, but completely dysfunctional.
Mhm.
And we kind of said, you know, dad should probably be with us. And so they talked, and because he immigrated to the US, my mom, remember I told you I'm a byproduct of immigration, and my mom immigrated to Canada. So they came together and it was disastrous. It was disastrous for my mom. It was disastrous for us. Um, just because of the lifestyle that he had created and expected to continue to live in this family unit perspective. And we finally sat with my mom and we said, this is not helping any of us. And the moment we talked to her and she realized, yeah, we're all impacted by this in negative ways. Again, the savior part of her came out, and it did not take her in 24 hours. He was gone. And it was, I always describe that moment of a dark cloud, like just following his car and keep going. And our whole life changed fundamentally, fundamentally once he was gone. Like just fundamentally. I don't even know how to as I said, dark cloud just left with that car. And my mom's life got better, our life got better. Um, we prospered so much more. So it's, again, when that dark space is holding you and you're able to break free from it. Whoa.
Wow. Well, what a
Um,
blessing to have that experience so that you knew for sure, instead of always wondering, I wonder what it would have been like if we'd had my dad growing up, and then to have that experience and go, wow, this isn't working for any of us. Let's fix it. And it fixed.
yeah.
That's
And
a
that's where I have the belief that when people stay together because of the kids,
oh gosh. Yeah.
please don't. I can tell you the child in me was like it was no, that is the worst thing. And stop thinking your kids don't know that something's off. They do know. They
Yeah.
really, really, really do know. They pick up on it. They're so attuned. So stop thinking they can't process that something isn't working. I think it's better for the child to just be transparent about it and teach them that choice for oneself can't be a bad choice.
Exactly.
And do not stay together because of the kids. It's so insulting to the kids as far as I'm concerned. So that was a choice my mom made for us after she heard it from our own lips that this was not good for her. It wasn't good for us. It wasn't good for anybody, including even my dad.
Right.
Time to just move on. Sorry we put you in that situation, really was the thing. I appreciate you trying, but it's not going to help. And it really was fundamentally different on a whole for the family.
Wow. And what an opportunity for him to either, come to some self-realization, whether he took the opportunity or not is yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Um, as I said, I learned the biggest lessons from my grandmother and my dad. Not even my mom. I learned them from my grandmother and my dad. What I learned from my mom was about taking what could be considered a sour grape life, and making it so beautiful. So truly that, the Beyonce song Lemonade, you take the lemons and you make lemonade. That's what my mom was fantastic at. And she never let us dwell or blame, you're not gonna go and blame people because of the color of your skin. You're not gonna go and blame any like get on and live your life. That was her viewpoint. And I remember she sent me to a summer camp at the summer camp. I came back from the summer camp the first day or the second day, and they were teaching about Black Panthers because I guess it was a thing at that time. I came in and put my hand up, Black Panther. That was it, my mom. I've never been yanked out of a camp so fast in my life. My mom was,
Oh,
we're
wow.
not having that. That is nonsense.
Oh, wow.
We're everybody in this world. There's good and bad in us all. Forget it. You're not doing this. And she yanked us. And it really was truly a significant life lesson because it showed me her value system was about inclusion. She didn't care about slavery. She didn't care about any of that. She cared about how do you get through life and embrace people. She goes, we get enough of the stereotypes. Absolutely not. Well, like, that's not what I'm gonna hand you down as a legacy to continue through life with stereotypes. No, your job is to break them.
Yes.
Show them why you should be accepted. Show them that you have a brain. Show them that you have thoughts. That was her viewpoint. You can do better, but don't use the past for a reason to continue and be wrong. So she yanked us out of that. That was the last time I. And as you see, we laugh about these things now, but they were amazing, amazing lessons. And my
That's
mom's house was like a revolving door in terms of just bringing in strays. I used to call them strays. At Christmas, there was always one or two people, if not more, that didn't have a place to go to, didn't have, weren't close to, meaning close to their family. Their family might be abroad or still in the West Indies. And she would always invite them and envelop them. And after a while, they became family, really. So she's the first person I saw doing that. And we would always at Christmas, okay, who's going to be the stray coming? And really looking forward to hearing their story and just supporting them in their journey, whatever that might be. So she was always open to a kaleidoscope of cultures and foods. And because she loved to cook, her the greatest time was in the kitchen where, an Indian friend and her would be doing recipes and exchanging recipes, and we would get different foods to try and all of that. That was how I grew up after my dad left. And it
wow.
was enriching.
I bet. Wow.
Yeah,
Tasty.
it was so enriching. So, yeah, so really, in the midst of some of the daunting stuff were such welcoming things and such embracing things. One of the things she gave us was the gift of travel. So we'd finish school, and on usually the next day we leave and we're on a flight somewhere, and we would spend the summer away.
Oh,
And
wow.
then we'd come back and maybe have a week or a few days before school started. And we started to really see how television, and I was never a big fan of television. I would be more outside than in. My sister was one that was into television, but we would start to see how the messaging on television was so skewed from reality when we traveled.
Mm,
Um, I remember traveling to Paris, and I was into fashion growing up in Montreal. One would be. I was into fashion, and my big thing was to see Yves Saint Laurent couture.
mhm.
So we're there, and then outside the door, this African family comes out of Yves Saint Laurent, and I remember how shocked. Reason because the stereotype was in my head. Africans are all poor and starving with flies flying around their face. That's what we see on TV. Right?
Right?
I'm not saying it's a good thing, but that's what we saw. And so as teenagers, we were like, what in the world? And we talked to them, and they spoke three languages, and they were king and queen of a tribe, and it was, it was unbelievable to me that Africans were that there was that lens of Africans, and so educated. And we sat and talked to them for a good hour.
Oh, wow.
And just the fact that they indulged us, I think because they saw that, what? And they had just went to get some haute couture done.
Wow.
And so it broke it broke the whole stereotype. And I don't think I ever really ever got into TV after that. And there were so many other experiences like that broke stereotypes that TV was pushing. And so the traveling became just embedded that if you want to learn about a culture, either befriend them or go and visit.
Right?
In real. But do not take what people tell you It's like Iranians. I've met so many Iranians in my life, and for some reason, they seem to be. We seem to. I don't know if it's a genealogical thing, but for some reason, I connect with Iranians like that. And when they talk, you see something so different from what's on TV. Their beliefs is I'm not saying that the society is perfect. What I'm saying is the people in their heart are good.
Right? Yes. Isn't it
And they have a love for life and laughing in nature. They love nature and they have beautiful places they'll tell you about in Iran. Um,
yeah,
and then it's the societal political spin that gives you this negative view of them
exactly.
and their culture. But it isn't true when you sit and talk with them and intermix with them. They are loving people.
Right? There's such a difference between the people and the countries. Countries exist in name only, and it's all
Exactly.
a political warfare, basically. And I remember growing up, and it was, the US versus the USSR, and those Russians are horrible people. And I just remember thinking, but there are millions and millions of beautiful Russian people that are over there. I know they're there because I can see them here. Like I can see the United States
Yeah,
people here. Like I'm surrounded by just people that just want to live life. They don't
exactly.
want to fight. And I know that those Russian people are the same way. They just want to live peaceful, happy lives. They're not into fighting.
And
It's
it
the
doesn't
governments that are into
represent,
fighting.
and that narrow lens does not represent 100% of people. It's just like, when we get stuck in this whole thing of skin color, and the persona is that we're fit into this stereotype. And I always try, no, we don't. No, we don't. That's probably a small subset. But I know the heart of us as culturally is about togetherness and community and really religious beliefs that are founded on honesty and kindness and helping each other out. That's talk to me on that level and I'll tell you where we fit. But if you talk to me on just on the mere fact that my skin color is dark, you lose me because then I have no idea what you're talking about. Because and this is where we go 360 to the beginning of our discussion, where I say, have the gumption to build up and do it from your lens. I am more than my skin color. And I've had a lot of years to look at my skin color because of my grandmother's message. And I don't buy in to, I think all this whole world is a kaleidoscope of color. And there's beauty in it if you look to see the beauty. And it has enough, it's so much more than just a skin color. I don't care if you're ivory tone, I don't care if you're Caucasian, I don't care what you are, if you're Nigerian, I don't care. There is a whole kaleidoscope of beauty. And in all of those regions, you will find good and bad because good and bad resides in us. We get to choose on what side of that will we stand, the good or the bad. All of us gets to choose. And sadly, sometimes you might meet somebody that has chosen the bad. That's their choice.
Yes.
And we all have a choice. And I could have stayed angry. I could have stayed rebellious. I could have stayed in that fighting mode. I got to fight. And at 9 years old, I knew that was wrong. That wasn't the way to be. And I wouldn't change that decision for the world. So we get the choice of free will to do those things and to really decide what we ultimately want for ourselves. And I know I don't wish to leave this world without my thoughts and value and ability to be a source of help and a source of good, to just be defined. Oh, that black lady there. Like, give me a break. And I do not wish to be defined that way, so I reject even that word as a definition of me. I'm not a Black person. I'm a person. I'm not a Black person, and I know I'm a minority in my own culture with that thinking, but I am not a Black person because I expect more from the person in front of me, and I see myself as more than that.
Absolutely. I say we are all grand beings of light.
Exactly.
We are
And
souls.
exactly. And I didn't even say female because in one life I might have been female, in another life I might have been male, I might have been who knows? So
Exactly.
I'm not even defining that way. I'm defining that I am more and I am divinely connected, and which is why my whole movement, my institute, my practice is all about divintastical living. How do you put that North Star, stay on it, and be neutral about everything else going on around you? And just stay out of those needless fights, aimless fights that literally does nothing. Because the world changes by each of us as an individual changing ourselves in the right way. That's how the world changes. It doesn't change by fighting systems. It doesn't change by holding picket. It changes by changing ourselves and our ability to influence others to want to change themselves.
Exactly. Heaven on earth is inside. Heaven is
Exactly.
in here. And it is up to each one of us to embody that rather than embodying all of the stuff that we're shown in the world that we're really taught to embody,
Mhm.
that this is the way it is and you have to fight for your rights and you have to fight for freedom and you have no, not really.
And if you want to be noticed, because a lot of times people do that because they want to be noticed. The way I always put it to my clients is, have you ever not noticed a monk? Have you ever not noticed a Buddha? Y- You notice them. And the reason you notice them is because they glide through crowds in such a tranquil way that you literally are attracted to them. They
Right.
could go through a crowd that's roaring and just walk, and you will notice them and you will want to follow them because of that. So if you want to be seen, and well, not even seen, because I like to believe that, and certainly I look to see everybody, but if you want to be noticed, it's about being tranquil and neutral and being so sure of yourself that when you walk into a room, you carry such a force that people look and go, who is that? Because you don't feel you need to say much. You don't feel you need to do much. And then when you open your mouth, what comes out is what that's rebuilding yourself.
Exactly. That's when we have our light fully shining.
Oh,
We become radiant. We become brilliant. Brilliant isn't about book learning or learning facts and figures. Brilliance is about having your inner light shining, being
ex-
your full self, being the being of light that we are as souls in the physical body. And that's what changes everything.
exactly. And having your heart, and I call it your heartbeat, literally being loud. And that's the frequency when you raise, when your light's shining and the frequency is in line. That's like people hearing your heartbeat
Yeah.
and they're attracted to it. So look to attract as opposed to I'm here and I believe this and that. Just look to really hone in your vibration, your light, and let it shine for you. And people do notice. It does get noticed. It really does. And it's a force to be reckoned with, more so than loud voices and animation and antics and all of these things.
Yeah, that authenticity for sure. I think the world is finally at a point where the majority of people are starting to see the facade. They're starting to see the inauthentic behavior of people, and I think they're getting tired. I think they're getting tired of all of the shenanigans.
And I think a lot of people want, I totally agree with you. And I think that's the vibrations that the world is going through now. I think a lot of people are now sensing and knowing there's a change and that they want something different. It's about them now figuring out what that different thing is. And in order to do that, that's where they need guidance and mentorship to rewire their neurology and their mindset
Mhm.
to be able to figure out what the difference is for them.
Yes.
Because we all have a purpose. As I went back to that bundle of joy that was perfect, magnificent, and with so much wisdom in it, that little bundle of joy also had a purpose.
Yes.
They came here for a purpose. They chose their family for their purpose. They orchestrated what their journey will be to reach that purpose and to find it. So that purpose could make you go down a different path to somebody else. But as long as it's purposeful journeying, it is better than just journeying and not even understanding where you're going. Just follow the last person. Like just follow what daddy did. Follow what mom, like don't give it any thought and just flow. I would much rather a purpose-driven life, having it been forced on me to figure out what it is, because I knew I didn't want it to follow the traditional dysfunctional thing of
Exactly.
family and my ancestral and all that, and clean up all of those ancestral hurts and be an instrument for that for myself, and then see where it points, that North Star. So everybody needs to go through that. And if you don't have help with that, then you reach out to people like me and Lisa and all the people that can guide you, because not everybody's for me. I will have my own people that are truly meant for me to be get to guide, but reach out either way to see, because this is what the light beings, if you know, that we are, and the emphatic ones that we are meant to do is to help take our lessons and our wisdoms and use them for good to help people find their way.
Exactly.
And that's what I would challenge people as if you are feeling lost, then take action and reach out to people who are here authentically to guide you.
Exactly. I think we've all gone through the same struggles in one way or another.
One way or another.
So you find the people that have been through the struggle that you're going through. And then you reach out to them because they've already gone through through it and they're on the other side and they can give you the shortcuts. I remember my healing journey was like, well, a really long and winding road trying to figure out how am I going to heal my body without the pills, without the doctors, without
Mhm.
any of that stuff. Can I do it? There's all the fear. And so it was a very long journey. But then once I got to the top of the hill, I was like, oh, well, if I just known these key points, I could have just gone from point A to point B. It would have been a whole lot simpler.
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, well, I did all of this long and winding road so that I could help other people who are along this pathway. No matter where they are on that path, I
Yeah.
can help them in that healing journey. And I think it's
And
this.
exactly. And then it's really about belief and what I call blind faith, like not just not it's more than belief. It's about taking steps forward, not knowing if there's a gap as you take the step, but truly having blind faith that that gap will get filled in as you step and
Exactly.
then take the next step. And to be able to live life that way takes one heck of a belief system and a purposeful end zone for you. So you have to know you're heading towards something and what that something is. And it has to mean so much to you that you will walk in blind faith and you will be guided by your inner divine and not by outside stimulus, right? Like, oh, what are you thinking about quitting your job and doing that? What are you thinking? These types of little snipping and bites at your beautiful light, trying to dim it. Just go in blind faith. And you'd be surprised at the miraculous life you will lead. Because I really believe, Lisa, that's what we are living is miracles every day. Because we've done the work and we still continue to do it, by the way. For those listening, the work never gets done, by
Never
the way.
stops.
Never stops. And you don't want it to stop because as one of my teachers say, when it stops, you're dead. So you don't want it to stop, by the way.
Hmm,
Um, but just continue to do the work and see the rewards that come from just doing the work.
exactly. Oh, what an incredible conversation today, Jen. Oh my gosh. It's been such a joy hearing about your story in more depth. I love it.
Thank you. It's um for me it's about the growth and seeing the Jen that sits here in front of you and in front of your audience is definitely not the Jen that was there 5 years ago or 3 years ago. There has been fundamental growth that started, as I said, from 5 years old and continues to go. And with each, how should I say, elevation of growth. There's such amazing rewards. And I sometimes look, when I look back, I just shake my head and go, wow, man, were you naive? Or man, wow, you really thought that? Or you, so what I'm trying to say to the audience is that I know in your current situation, especially when you're floundering or you're unsure, it seems such a hard thing. But I'm telling you, on the other side, is a life of miracles that just amazes you. It it is it is so profound that it's hard to put into words, but it truly is something special. And I want people to pick up on that, not just it's so much more than you know, the Talminus story I told of my young years. That is nothing. That looks like it's so far removed that I could literally hang with my dad and I can hang with my grandmothers and with full love for them. And until you get to that, if you're still holding anger for some of the people that's been in your life that have hurt you, do the journey and get to the other side where you can love them despite themselves. And you can love anybody despite themselves. You can forgive anybody, anything despite themselves.
It's an amazing journey, and this is why love is the answer to
Love is the answer.
everything.
Love is the answer. Love, gratitude, and forgiveness. Those are the three, to me, pivotal things. And giving yourself grace in that whole forgiveness piece. Understand, hey, there's the human side and there's the soul side, and hang on the soul side.
Yes,
Because the human side's just experiences that you kind of go, huh, okay.
exactly. Just an
Mm.
experience that the soul is having. And when you stop having the human experience, you still have the soul experience. You don't go anywhere.
Exactly. So it's all good. It's
That's
all
it.
good if you're willing to embrace. So,
Absolutely.
and reach out if you need help with it.
Yes. And Jen, where do people reach out to you if they'd like to reach out to you?
They would reach out by email, Jen at youareworthmore.co. And it really is co, not com, co. So Jen at youareworthmore.co is where you can reach out to me. My website is jendrakes with two N's .com. And, you know, practice is open in terms of one-on-one coaching. We have courses, and then I'm always open to speaking engagements to really help pass the message of how we get beyond with grace and gratitude, which what I call G squared. So how do you get beyond what you think is such a high mountain to climb that I can definitely show you how. So
Fantastic. And for everybody that's watching today, if you'd like to know those links, just look in the show notes and they will be in the show notes for your convenience. So, Jen, thank you so much for being my guest today. It's been such a
oh,
delight.
it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. And everyone watching, thank you for watching another episode of Soul Stories, because every soul has a story. So go out and create your best story because you can. Thanks for watching. Until next time, create a great story. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to this episode of Connecting You to You Radio. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share it with your friends. Are you ready to discover more about how simple healing your body can actually be when you do it from the higher wisdom of your soul? To learn more about what I do and how you can work with me, visit connectingyoutoyou.com and get on my mailing list to be the first to know about my latest offerings. If you'd like to interact with me on Facebook, please join my group, Soul Sourced Healing. Check the show notes below for these links and more. I hope to see you again next time on Connecting You to You Radio.